Hey guys, Virus here. I wanted to make a video explaining my process for this Ringo piece, and also go over how I implement using 3D reference in my works. 3D refs are something I've been using since 2015. I think they're a powerful tool for trying to figure out poses and dynamic angles or difficult shapes, and if you have some skill with 3D software, you can go even farther and model your own character so that you have the ultimate ref sheet. Sometimes I'll just go into ZBrush and quickly sculpt a character's head and use that as reference. It's so useful. But let's get one thing clear, okay? 3D reference is not a substitute for learning the fundamentals. You still need to know form, silhouettes, line of action, etc. 3D is just a tool to help you with things you're having trouble with, like any good reference. The program you're seeing me use here is DesignDoll. It's very quick and dirty. There are a lot of flaws to it, but I can't think of a better app that allows me to quickly proportion, pose, and shoot a character. It's not free, but there is a trial version that lets you get started with basic posing. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. So once I've got my reference doll proportioned and I've posed it, so it's ready to go, I'll export a transparent image and import it into Procreate. The next thing I'll do is trace over the reference. The reason why I'm tracing this reference is not so that I can use it in the final piece, but in order to break down and understand the pose. And I think this can be a vital learning technique that you can apply not just to 3D reference, but any reference. Take a picture of someone and try to break them down into basic shapes and construction. Got a favorite character you want to draw? Break them down. If it's just for learning and educational purposes, tracing is an absolutely okay practice. Don't be afraid to trace in order to get a better understanding of something. Just make sure that you keep it separate from your original works. Once I've traced the reference and have a good understanding of the pose, I'll draw an original rough sketch based on the trace I just made. And while I'm doing so, I'm thinking of ways on how to improve the pose. Because one of the problems with using 3D reference is that often a pose can come out very stiff looking, and I want this pose to have lots of energy in it. As artists, our job isn't to fully recreate what we see or refer to, it's to create an ideal version of it. So now that the character has been blocked out, I'm going to start drawing some clothes on her. I want these clothes to have this looseness to them in order to add even more energy to the pose. Even at this point, I'm going back and referring to the reference so that I can make some more changes here. After redoing the character's head, it's time to do all the inks, and what I'll usually do is I'll start with thin lines, and once that's done, I'll add some thickness in certain places, such as the outline of the character or overlapping areas of the character, such as the various folds in her jacket. Once we start adding some color, we see that our boxing tigress is really starting to come to life. And here I start the shading. So I'm going to start by having the light source being on the right side of the character. But because I'm only using single tone rendering for the most part, I'm going to use shadow to not only add a depth, but to also accent certain parts of the body, such as her eye sockets and her sideburns. When it comes to picking tones for rendering, often I'll just draw in one color and then spin the hue slider until something sticks. If I'm using one layer for rendering, I'll also go through layer filters until I find something that stands out. Usually it's a hard light filter, but for this particular drawing I use an exclusion filter for the white and red fur shadows, which are all on one layer. Now, while this was supposed to be a cel-shaded piece, I decided to cheat a bit by adding some gradients here and there. I have a brush that stamps out a very simple gradient box, and I'll either cut as needed or use a clipping mask to remove the excess parts. For more detailed gradients, I simply take a partially opaque rectangular brush and erase bit by bit until I have a nice looking transition. All that's left is to slap a simple background down, add a white drop shadow, and we're done. So here we have Ringo. She's ready to go for a fight. I really like how this piece turned out. I love the colors. The pose has this nice energy to it. All the clothing folds add a lot of flair and interest to the image. It's just got this feeling I just like. It just pops out, you know? Well, that's all, folks. If you want to see more videos like this one, leave a comment down below. Link to my socials are in the description so you can check out all the cool art I do. Thanks for watching. See you next time.